Thanks for coming back so promptly. It's really helpful. So we've got another afternoon session now until 5:30. So I'll hand you over to Paramananda, who I think is going to lead another meditation.
Thank you, Nagasiddhi. Welcome back to you all. Yeah, so we're going to start off with a fairly short meditation. So get yourselves ready, get yourself set up in your meditation posture.
I just say, just make sure you mute yourself, everybody.
Oh yeah, mute yourself. Well, it's up, yeah. Not that much.
Depends how noisy your neighbours are.
Well, yeah, how noisy you are. And your neighbours. My neighbours are sometimes quite noisy, so if you suddenly do hear music or something. Anyway, shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so yeah, get yourselves ready. Make sure you're as comfortable as possible. I'm sure I probably don't need to say this, but however you sit, your posture should let you fully let go in the legs. Yeah. So I know sometimes people kind of sit with their knees up, so they're not on the ground. If you want to sit like that, you should support under the knee so you can completely relax the leg without stressing the muscles. So I think what we're going to do this afternoon, we're just, I'll just lead you in a little bit, and I'm just going to leave you with the heart, yeah? So we're just going to see what it's like to imagine physically sort of changing, well, I don't know where you meditate from now, but we're going to imagine that we're meditating from the heart. So we're going to try and imagine that the heart is the kind of center of our consciousness, radiating out a bit like a sun, yeah, rather than our consciousness being kind of located in our head, which I think is how many of us experience our consciousness. And of course, if we think of the sun, of course, it radiates 360 degrees, not just out of the front. I think very often in our norm, it's quite understandable because of where our eyes and ears are. So usually our attention is sort of out in front of us a little bit. And when we're just going about our daily lives, and it's more or less like when we put our consciousness out in front in that way, we tend to be moving towards something all the time. One of the really basic things that we're doing when we're meditating is we're trying to stop moving towards, in a way, or moving away from things. We're just trying to sit with things. Yeah. Sometimes we express this in terms of greed and hatred, but it's also a sort of just a feeling. It might not necessarily have any particularly negative emotional. It's just sort of a kind of habit in a way that we tend to understand our lives as kind of linear. And of course, on some kind of level, they are linear. We're born and we travel through life to death, don't we? And we can see that as a linear thing. But from a psychic point of view, our lives aren't really linear. There's things that experiences or ways of being that that happened in the past that are just as alive now, or sometimes even more alive than they were when they happened. You know. Our psyche isn't our actual psyche. But by psyche, I'm using the word psyche, I mean our whole mind, really. Our mind is not necessarily linear, you know. No, I don't worry about that. Anyway, we're going to try and encourage our awareness into the heart center. I mentioned this morning that the heart happens to occupy the midpoint on this vertical axis, which is the axis in which we align the body. And it's the axis, in a sense, that represents this unification of what's above and what's below. So we're going to see if we can just see what it's like to just try and gently keep the awareness in the heart area, which includes the lungs. So it's quite a natural place to come and focus, to become the kind of center of the awareness, because meditation is so linked to our breathing. And obviously we breathe, you know, the heart and lungs is sort of the center of that physical experience. Of course, sometimes we might center somewhere else, down in the belly or whatever, but this time we're just going to see what it feels like to, as I say, imaginatively. We're just going to imagine the heart at the center of it all. Okay, I won't go on because we haven't got much time. So as before, if you want to take a couple of slightly stronger breaths, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth, sort of expelling all the air from the body on the out breath, getting rid of any stale air. This is what the Tibetans talk about this, how stale air in the lungs leads to distraction. And then when you're ready, just allowing the breathing to settle back. What's normal for you. So we're not trying to breathe in any particular way when we meditate. We're just trying to breathe in a relaxed, natural way. As before, just spend a moment or two imagining releasing the legs. So releasing from the hips, releasing from the knees and the ankles, and even the little joints in the bones of the feet. Just imagine the pelvis kind of tending downwards, sinking downwards a little bit. And then at the other end, releasing the head upwards. So the head, the position of the head, it should feel that you're slightly opening up the back of the skull, at the base of the skull there. So if you drop your chin just very slightly, imagining that the skull is pivoting on top of the spine. And you can get this sense that the base of the skull at the back is just creating a little bit of space between it and the spine as it goes up into the head. notice your face, and might actually ask your face if it wants to just relax. What would it be like just to let the face soften a little bit? I'm trying to have some sense, imaginative sense. It doesn't have to be anatomically correct, but some imaginative sense of the spine rising up from the pelvis. Natural curves through the body, right up through the trunk, as it were. Right up into the skull there. So we've got some sense of the length of our body. And see if you can imagine the breath just tending to loosen the spine a little bit. So there's a slight lengthening or a tendency towards lengthening in both directions along this vertical axis. And let's bring a bit of awareness into the back of the body, so behind, back of the neck there, back of the shoulders, under the scapula, shoulder blades there. And down the length of the spine and the breadth of the back. There's quite a lot of movement in the back as you breathe. Let's come at the heart. Let's imagine coming at the heart from behind, as it were. So just beginning to notice the heart area. But your heart is kind of draped by the lungs either side. We're just allowing that to become the kind of focal point or the center. If you think of your body as a mandala, you're imagining the heart as the center of the mandala. So the rest of the body stroke mandala is kind of brought into order around the heart. You might want to pop Amitabha in there if that's your sort of thing. You can just imagine Amitabha sitting in there. In some traditions, some of the Western traditions, these chakras or these energy centers in the body, which are normally depicted in Buddhism as lotuses. Some of the European traditions imagined as roses, the roses. So I must say I find having a bit more resonance with me than the lotus. You might like to imagine the heart, your heart, a rose thrown. Amitabha just sat on the heart there. Anyway, don't worry if that sort of thing doesn't do anything for you. So we're just breathing in and out and kind of drawing into the center of the mandala, the heart center. Drawing in is probably going to happen on the in-breath, but if it happens the other way around, just go with that. Sometimes these energetic kind of flows in the body get reversed or subjectively. So we're kind of gathering into the heart on the in-breath and then kind of releasing from the heart on the out-breath. We're releasing into our own body from the heart initially, and then maybe that begins to extend from the body out into the world itself. So there's a kind of gathering and releasing to the heart center. We're doing this quite lightly. Don't try and force anything. It's quite a playful imagining. You don't have to take it too seriously, as it were. Just had that little Anish Nin poem pop into my mind, riff. And then the time came when the risk it took to stay tight as a bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom. When the time came when the risk it took to stay tight as a bud was more painful than the risk it took to bloom. Maybe you can just have this image of the heart beginning to bloom as it were. As you breathe in and out. just noticing what's happening, and if you've lost the sense of the heart, just very gently come back. One way we have a sense of when we're kind of centered from the heart is that our conceptual thought will lessen, because that's not really the language of the heart. We might well still have feelings and images, even memories, but the heart doesn't really express itself through conceptualization. Soft face, just a couple more minutes. So before we end the meditation, just keep the posture, just stop doing anything. So you're not trying to do anything at all. You're just relying on the posture. So just bringing the meditation to an end. So what's going to happen now is that you're going to be, I think it's a random allocation into a group, and you have about 20 minutes, and it's just an opportunity for you to speak about your meditation, just see what comes out, just you know, just be spontaneous, see what comes out. Perhaps keep a bit of an eye on the time and make sure everybody gets to speak. I think there's going to be about 4 people in each group. And we have about 25 minutes, I think, altogether. And then we're going to come back together and have a kind of plenary session just to see if there's any of you want to ask or talk about or comment on or share with the group.